Good evening, everybody. I'm Richa Agarwal, CEO of Emami Art and Kolkata Center for Creativity, and we are very excited to have the conversation series 1.3. And I'd like to give a very warm welcome to Anju Dodiya. Thank you for joining us for this webinar, and thank you so much, Ushmita, for curating the entire series of webinars that we've been having, enjoying Zoom and not enjoying Zoom on many days as well. So I'd like to read a little bio of Anju Dodiya for our own benefit. So Anju Dodiya, born in 1964, Mumbai, has had 18 solo shows in India and abroad, which includes site-specific installations. Throne of Frost at the Lakshmi Vilas Palace, Baroda, 2007. Room of Erasures, Kemal Prescott Road, Mumbai, 2012. Imagined Immortals, Vadera Art Gallery, New Delhi, 2014. How to Be Brave in Pictures, Gallery Daniel Templeton, Paris, 2016. The Air is a Mill of Hooks, Bikaner House, New Delhi, 2018. And Breathing on Mirrors, Kemal Prescott Road, Mumbai, 2020. Her important group participations include ARS-01, Unfolding Perspectives, Museum of Contemporary Art, Kiasma, Helsinki, Finland, 2001. New Narratives, Contemporary Art from India, curated by Betty Seed at Chicago Cultural Center, Chicago, 2007. Making Words, curated by Daniel Birnbaum, 53rd Venice Biennale, Venice, 2009. The 5th Beijing International Art Biennale, National Museum of China, Beijing, 2012. Aesthetic Bind, Subject of Death, curated by Geeta Kapoor at Kemal Prescott Road, Mumbai, 2013. The Eye and the Mind, New Interventions in Indian Art. Continuing Traditions, The Journey is the Destination, The Artist's Journey Between Then and Now, Jahangir Nicholson Art Foundation, Mumbai, 2016. No Parsi is an Island, curated by Ranjit Hoskote, Nancy Adjania, and Firoza Godrej. Sorry, just a second, please. National Gallery of Modern Art, New Delhi, 2016. Bhupen's Contemporaries, Gravina Vadera, London, 2016. Visions from India. And many more that I can go on and on. Represented in several private and public collections in India and abroad, including the National Gallery of Modern Art, New Delhi, Mumbai, Jahangir Nicholson Art Foundation, Mumbai, Kiran Nadar Museum of Art, New Delhi, Devi Art Foundation, Gurgaon, the Berger Collection, Hong Kong, RPG Enterprises, Mumbai, Tapi Collection of Shilpa and Praful Shah, India, the Art Institute of Chicago, and again, the list is endless. So Anju Dodiya lives and works out of Mumbai. Thank you so much, Anju, for joining us today.
Thank you, Richa, and thank you, Ushmita. Thank you so much for
Over
inviting
to you, Ushmita, now.
Thank you. Welcome, Anju. It's a real pleasure to have you with us here today for the Emami Art Talks Conversation Series 1.3. Welcome to all our audience on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. I would like to remind everybody that please do write in your questions, which we will look at towards the end of the session. So Anju, before we start looking at your work and discussing them, I would like to ask you that could you share some insights, into your early years as an artist? I know that you studied commerce and then you changed over to studying art at JG School, where you did mostly abstract collages. And you have termed your practice as singularly sharp and linear. Why is that, and how did that come about?
First of all, let me thank everybody who's joined us here today, and special thanks to you, Ushmita, for inviting me. And I did study commerce at the HR College, Bombay, for 2 years, and it's just that, in school and otherwise, I felt I felt creative. I did want to do painting, maybe writing, but I didn't have the confidence to, step into that zone. And also, I was in that state of mind where I felt that as a woman, I needed to earn a living. When I say as a woman, I mean especially because I was a woman. It was important to stand on my own feet, and that whole idea of freedom and liberation.
Sure.
That was very much part of my teen brain, and so I decided to maybe I'll do other things, and then uh, move on to things that I love, like art or painting or something. And so I joined HR. I studied commerce. I was miserable. In 6 months, I was like in tears. And soon after, I joined the JJ School of Art, and that was home. I found myself in a few weeks. I would say I knew that I was doing something that I loved, and I wanted to go on with it. So yeah, that was the beginning, and that's how I came to art.
And what about this? I personally have not seen much of your abstract, collages as you. I think a
Right.
couple of images I've seen in some catalogs where it's been printed along with other works.
Right. I haven't shared much of that because that was primarily, when I started with in JJ, it's a very academic setup. They teach portrait painting, and that's a very active class. And I found myself not capable. I found myself totally incapable in handling what were, the classical traditional means. And so I would struggle with it. And I was a very VP kind of student because that part didn't work for me. But in my private at home, for instance, I would constantly be drawing, and they were mirror self-portraits and things like that. It was a very active, nocturnal kind of sketchbook. And it didn't have to do with self so much as the idea of feeling free in your own space and making work. So that went on privately, and also, I was always a hoarder of uh, pictures and ads, and I would collect scraps of fabric. And I mean, when I say hoarder, it was like crazy. I had suitcases full.
Oh.
So all this stuff became part of collages. I did a lot of collages, and they were very abstract at that time. I think the first years at JJ, I discovered Robert Rauschenberg and Motherwell, and yeah, especially the abstract expressionists, the Americans. And I was very happy. Yeah, that was one of the first images I made. And I had very little of it. I lost a lot of it in the Bombay monsoons. Things came apart and all that. But
So,
I think it still works on my sensibility, and it's very much part of a lot of the things I do. The notions of transparency, or
and also juxtaposition of shapes, and especially in your later works, I can see the juxtaposition of different shapes within a background, which
yeah,
kind of maybe harks back to that early practice.
absolutely, the cutouts and things like that. Yeah, the sharp
Yeah.
angularity. I would say definitely.
So maybe on that note, we can start with the sharing the works, because you did mention your nocturnal practice of portraits, and I think these are the initial series. And
Right.
so when I was looking through these works, I kind of felt that the series that we will go on to see is almost like a meta storytelling about a solitary artist who's confined to a room making works. But each work is so filled with, violent gestures that I felt like, for instance, this has gnawing paper, and somewhere you're pulling, or somewhere you're falling or cleaning a head. And they have this very anxious quality about them. So maybe while we are looking at the works, you could talk about this, what you have called the choreography of tension.
Yeah, it's You see, when I started out, after doing those collages, after leaving college, I suddenly felt this great need to paint the figure. And it was a wonderful contradiction that um, when the training was available, I refused it. And when I came out, I needed to draw the figure. So I kind of returned to those sketchbooks that I spoke about, those hard drawings of the self and, things like that. So, and also at the same time, I just accidentally, I found watercolor in the sense that there were some tubes which I didn't want to throw away. And then that's how I started. But I guess because it was very self-taught, the process, I found my own kind of strange solutions and the hard edge or say working large, things I did which were not part of the method. And my subject matter was mostly in those early years was a girl in the room. And this girl in the room was not a girl, she was an artist, She was definitely an artist in the room. And constantly I was trying to capture all the rituals that I thought are part of creativity. So, instance, what you have on the screen just now, entering the ring. This is the image is taken from a newspaper photograph. The sumos in Japan. They have this in the wrestling tradition. They have this whole ritual of when they start a fight. They enter the ring. So this is the kind of body language that you would see. And I thought this was amazing, this heavy body trying to cross over the threshold as if. And it also, I sort of identified with it, that the inertia of breaking free, that moment when from feeling the need to be creative till the moment you actually make the act. So that whole distance is a huge distance. It's a huge gap. So I think that is a gap, that is a space that I worked with for many years. And constantly, I'm told that it's a self, but when I started out, I called it a fictional autobiography. So it was a self, but it was fictional. It was constantly digging stories about the many selves that I knew or understood or wanted to be. Like, what you have on the screen here, Circuit of the Gong. So this is, it started with the story of Athena being pulled out of Jupiter's head. So, this, I kind of thought that creativity is a violent process and constantly pulling out images out of your head, this whole, it has to do with, so I don't know, I try to connect it with the myth. And if you see even the previous images, so this artist in the room is the subject matter. And I kind of worked with variations and working about the vulnerable self, the exposed self.
But you also talk about the difficulty of your practice. I mean, because I think you've mentioned in several places that you have an anxious nature, and hence for you sometimes painting is like a martial art, or it's a hard process to occupy. So maybe that also perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, of course that one's own nature and the subject matter are important, but also if you can go back to the stumble, the earlier image. So, so this image comes from, again, a newspaper photograph of a tennis star taking a fall during a match. And so, I mean, I would say that one carries one subject matter within, it's there all the time, that what you feel, what you're thinking, what you want, all that, the thing about desire and being able to express it, to put it down on paper. So, but I think what was the fun in those early years was this, I constantly was finding material, I was finding images in the world outside. So from the sports world or later like myth or, so all this was kind of building up a sort of image bank for me. And so maybe this comes from one of those, the previous one with the snake comes from, one of those weird photographs with those, those Ripley's kind of
Okay.
snake
Yes.
in the room kind of thing, maybe. But for me, it was constantly about this, the challenge of facing yourself, constantly about this confrontation with the emotional theater within. And so, I was almost leaping on images to connect with my own content.
Mm.
Okay, what you see here is
Sorry. Yeah.
this is from a Carl Dreyer film, and the Passion of Joan of Arc. And yeah, cinema also gave me a lot of stuff to work with. And I think it's also, it's not just stories, it's also about a certain, about feelings, about what can color do, what can the juxtaposition of figures do. So the temperature of color, things like that. So
Right. So in a sense, the self-image, which is a constantly recurring motif, on most of your oeuvre, but these are not conventional self-portraits as we have just seen, and those who know your work would also know. But then when you, what happens when you take on these imagined roles? Like sometimes you're a samurai or Arachne or a Joan of Arc, uh, or even, where you paint the anxious artist eating the paper, and in another painting there's the paper chasing the artist or the artist chasing the paper. So what happens there? How do you then, where do you begin and end, and what happens to these personas that you kind of take on?
I think it is very clearly a sort of, I think has to do with the imagination, and the performer is, I would say I maybe approach the work like a novelist or an actor, in the sense that this is a character and something is happening to it. And like when the writer, when you use the I form, it doesn't mean that the writer is talking about herself. It could be, it's a narrator. So in the same way, I think constantly I am taking on these roles is not just like, for instance, what you're seeing, I'm getting very distracted by my own images. What you're seeing on the screen here, this is from this was a film shot. Kanan Bala was the actress, a 1950s film, and so those the balls that you see have many images of the self. And I thought that I often do this. I insert references to the process in the painting itself. So that's constantly trying to play a game. So it's about a game of different roles and different characters which are structured. It has to do with maybe some associations of my own experiences, but mostly it is it's the imagination, and which I think imaginations, I think hugely underrated. It's we often think about reality or confession as it's like many years ago, Tayyab Mehta, when he saw my first lot of watercolors, and he had said that, Anju, he said that Van Gogh painted self-portraits and Rembrandt at a particular time in their lives, when something happened. So when something dramatic happened, something had to be registered. And but otherwise, what is your necessity? What is your need for painting a self-portrait? And I could tell him, I could articulate it, but I was very clear that I have nothing to say. And but I'm going to say it through this own self. It's also about basically making a construct. You see, making a form or a construct which is fed by all the richness that you may not have experienced sitting on your chair in a some ordinary room and leading a very regular life where I haven't cut off my ear or I haven't lost a fortune like Rembrandt in stuff like that. I haven't led a dramatic life, but that doesn't mean I don't understand drama. There's something called empathy and imagination, and so constantly that has fed the art.
Right. So maybe in continuation to this image and to what you just said, this you have professed your love for fashion and costume. I think I've seen certain images where in your collages or images you've saved designs by Alexander McQueen as well. And so my question here is that in a way that this love for costume also furthers the idea of a fictive masquerade where you inhabit these other roles, and the costume allows the wearer to assume an alternate persona and to escape from constraints of ordinary life. But it could also reverse, it could also mean that you're kind of you're hiding your true self behind a projected image. Is that ever a case, or is that something that you deliberately thought of or
no, it's I don't like the word hiding because it's
sure.
I was thinking it's a verb which doesn't do much for me, but on the other hand I think I like the idea of creating or constructing a secret, so that is I find it more there's the idea of building there, and also a certain, so I like the idea of secret, and when what I mean is that, like you rightly said, that fashion interests me not as say as a beautiful garment, but I think that the human body, the figure that I paint, or the faces that interest me, they are this is going elsewhere. This is not.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Anyway, nor is this. But anyway, so it's like the thing about fashion is that it's an appendage, you see, to the human body, which I think which has a huge emotional potential. You see, it expresses. For instance, there's a Japanese designer called Rei Kawakubo. So if you look at her works, like the first time I saw this, I was amazed. There's this beautiful model wearing a dress which has a huge hump here, and it almost makes her like a hunchback. And the distortion of the form, the human form, it had so much kind of emotional weight. It kind of it took that body into extremely areas of vulnerability, and yet there is I mean, you don't forget the dignity of the forms that we know, the dignity of the human body that we know, and then overlapped with these distortions. Somehow I think it takes you into some sort of uncharted territories, which interests me a lot. So so strange hats become some sort of extensions of the head, or the the circuits within. So I think I like to play with all that and try to explore the fashion as I would say, yeah, like theater again.
Yeah.
okay, this is Spaghetti Shiva with Ganga trying to find a way out of Shiva's head.
But Ganga has a pencil in her hand.
Yeah, because she always the reference to the active studio and the artist drawing. So she has a pencil sheet to find a way out of this maze.
So, I mean, coming from Shiva, Spaghetti Shiva to Divine Wedding, this work is very interesting, and also I think it's one of your first works with with tech mattress and fabric.
Right. Divine Wedding I was invited to, this was a public commission where the subject matter was given. It was Shiva's wedding. Like there were lots of us artists, they had different subjects related to Shiva's wedding. And it was a large space, about 16 feet across. And at that time, I was working only with watercolor, and paper did not allow me to think on this scale. So I thought of maybe I should make drawings on fabric and spread them over or something. So starting with that, finally, I came to this. They became, the fabric was stretched onto a mattress, and it became kind of double bed on the wall. And of course, the idea came to me partly because of the subject matter, the divine wedding, and so a couple and a mattress, and all those things. And also, I think I had this great affinity for fabric and the textures of different cloth that one can work on. And also, once I tried it, I enjoyed it very much. There was a certain sensuousness, and every time I would draw a face, it would have a different skin. When I, the texture had flowers or so, like scars, like something on the skin, an impression, which I liked very much. And so that was the first time I worked on these mattress paintings. And you can see the crazy guest at the wedding on top. And my Parvati, she's a Japanese Parvati, if you notice. And it's because I thought that it's a divine situation. So what difference does it make, Mount Kailash and Mount Fuji? So I kind of let her be Japanese.
Right.
It was fun for me.
Yeah. So these are again mattress paintings, and I can see what you mean about the fabric giving texture to the body of your protagonists within the works. And I think at some point you also connected this to your skin condition that you had at the time.
Right. Even now, for instance, I have vitiligo, so that makes me white. But at that point, I had there were patches all over, and so the brown and the white, it created quite all these clouds. I would say clouds on my skin, and I think in a lot of places in my work, I have referred to these clouds, and the maps on the body. So you see the mattress paintings, first I did it because of a very valid reason, and then later it became the subject matter that I usually work with seemed to allow this. You see, a bed is a place where you dream, and so not just, all my, I think the idea of insomnia and desire and anxiety, I think all this is played out on a bed, and so that's how these paintings continued to happen.
And I heard in one of your interviews, you said something very evocative, that when you did these on fabric and then turned it into a mattress, the painted mattress became a pregnant painting. It kind of firmly then pushing it into a private feminine zone.
Sorry.
And for instance, in this painting, I think you have made the myth of Penelope and how she's waiting for her absent husband, and she knits and weaves and unravels every day. So you have connected the medium and your concept together in, I think, a very poignant way. So
Yeah, it's also just by as soon as the fabric went up on the mattress, by default it became an object. So that the idea of the two-dimensional painting that I've always worked on, I like that very much. This it almost becomes sculptural, and the way it stands against a wall, you know, it kind of there's a certain concave presence, which always to me in my mind they became pregnant paintings. You know, they were vertical and there's this bump and yeah, and I enjoyed that a lot. You know, it made it very physical. The presence of such a thing made it very physical for me. And yeah, you're right. This is Penelope, and the Path of Berries was. Yeah, I like that very much. The idea of well, anyway, this bird is from a Persian painting that I had seen, and that fine white line reminded me of as if it was woven, and as if you just had to pull one white line and the whole thing will come apart. And that reminded me of Penelope, and that's how this painting, this image developed. And the figure the couple that you see down there, which is supposedly Penelope and Odysseus when they finally meet, but it's taken from a film, and that is Tom Cruise, from Tom Cruise.
Is it Vanilla Sky?
No, it's
Because, yeah, right.
Why am I blanked out? It's that
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise in.
Okay, Kubrick's film. Kubrick's film?
Yes,
Yeah,
Kubrick.
yeah. Okay.
Eyes Wide.
Eyes wide shut. Yes. Right. So from there, from those early paintings, watercolors, and then the mattress paintings, we come to this. I think this was your first installation, a site-specific work. If you could tell us more about it, because it's very interesting how you juxtapose these two mediums, which one wouldn't suppose go together into this kind of
so this is in the Baroda Palace in the Darbar Hall, and it's a beautiful space. And when I was invited to make an exhibition here, it's kind of difficult being a painter and no walls. You can see all charokhas and very ornate and chandeliers and mosaic up and down and these stained glass windows. And so it was very challenging for me. And initially I was offered ideas like, one can build walls and do this and that. But I thought that would not be appropriate. I'm in this fabulous space and I wanted to use it. And then finally this came about. It's like it's this lake of mirrors, almost shards, mirror shards, and I had these paintings around it. And I was thinking that constantly, working with the self, I often work from a mirror in the beginning, and it seemed like the mirror was the right thing to use there to to reflect everything and bring the space together, because otherwise it can be a very distracting space. You cannot possibly focus on a contemporary art, some drawing in some corner. It just wouldn't have worked. So I wanted my viewer to kind of zoom in and to be captured within that whole space. And so the mirrors came first as kind of a faceted surface which reflects everything. And I think my response to it was more like, it was like a kind of a meditation on wealth and decay. And it's a very beautiful palace, but yet you can't escape that whole what has happened to palaces now, and our whole historic association with palaces. And so, and of course death. It was definitely thinking of the passage of time, and so that was what inspired the images. And also for me, as I said, the mirrors were the starting point, because at that very time, I happened to read a phrase from Rilke where he says that shattered beings are best represented in bits and parts. So it seemed like, as if I believe that a lot, that at the right time I got I was allowed to do it in this way. And um, that's how it kind of developed from there anyway. So what you're seeing is that the front is, what you're seeing in front is actually the kind of upholstered mattress with embroidered motifs, and the drawing goes inside. So, if you want to look at the drawing, you see it across the 25 feet of the mirror lake, or you kind of, it made the viewer very performative. You see everyone was kind of leaning forward and or trying to connect with the images, and yeah. And
yes, several of your works here also allude to jewels, and but then again, you've subverted how you and what you talk about, for instance, in this work.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, Changing Skin was. It started with, again, as we were talking about fashion, started with something I'd seen in a newspaper of Alexander McQueen. No, sorry, it was a Comme des Garçons design, and I liked while I was painting, this thing about jewel and wound, and also maybe pomegranate, maybe fruit. So, all these things, organic and emotional and decoration, all these things coming together on a face. And that was very much part of my attempt. And yeah, I did, because it was a palace one, jewels did come in, and constantly, I think I was also going back to the aspect of being an artist. This is, paper rope on the previous image. The idea of the fragile, and let me explain that how it worked was the pairs. Like, this was the drawing, paper rope, and what was behind was this dragonfly. This was embroidered motif. I kind of I selected the fabrics, and these were done. I did some embroidery in school, so I didn't do this myself, but this was done through friends. And also, sometimes there was some sort of logic that the fragile here and the fragile there, and sometimes you can come to the next image, please. Right. So this was Victor, because he looked like Victor Banerjee, the actor at that point, and I had scissors behind because I thought he needed a haircut. So this was extremely. I just felt free to sometimes make it significant, and sometimes it was just a whim, and sometimes there were just clues left for the viewer, and I had some narration in my mind. So there was a lot of that going on with the front and the back, and so I enjoyed that game.
Almost a free association kind of a game, almost.
For me. But not necessarily every time for the viewer.
Right.
So
yeah, of course, and you have that secretive veil in place where you don't necessarily let the viewer into your secrets and let them also make their own associations.
Yeah, I think it's also maybe it's part of all poetry. And when you look at it, it's like it's my story, but it could be yours, and you take the fragments and put it together in your way.
Right.
And there was a lot of this also. Sorry, the previous image. I think I'm going too slow for you. The previous image, we find these sort of signs and images used in. We have this colonial hangover. So you'll find a soap, or with a crown, or a star on a shoe polish, or things like that. So all that was also coming in. I was partly being there was sort of a reverence for the idea of for that beautiful space, and at the same time, I think I was having fun, and all that happened with the images. Touching air is this was, yeah, this was 8 feet high, and so there were different sizes, and there was a lot of that too. You know, the heights were different, and so the viewer could kind of walk around and interact in the space in different ways.
Yeah. So this comes from another exhibition, I think, All Night Eichel Gala, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and these are paper pulp casts.
yeah, I mean, I've been working with watercolor and charcoal a lot, like in the previous image. Like charcoal, I think came because I wanted to do away with the preciousness of watercolor. But soon after, I think it was a 5-week residency in Singapore, the STPI, the Singapore Tyler Print Institute, and so I have done very little printmaking earlier, but here this was amazing, working directly with the paper pulp. And you see, earlier, like we were talking about secrets and stuff, but anyway, I find that when I'm painting, you know, this it's constantly about digging out images. You know, it's very painful. This whole you're kind of digging out images from yourself. You're trying to invent or, you know, pull out things. And when I went to, I mean, the print residency, because of the paper pulp, you know, there's a wet pulp, and you can do anything to it. I found I was working in a reverse manner. I was inserting things into the pulp. So the pulp is wet and it's ready to receive, and you are inserting images. So on the wet pulp, you can make a screen print, or you can insert a fabric. You know, so.
And this is hair or thread that you've inserted? It's hair or thread?
It's thread. And the pink is a window with fabric behind. And the poems are, they are fragments from the poetry of Sylvia Plath. I think there was Plath throughout. And I just use fragments, and actually I do that a lot. I think a whole poem means something else, but you know, when you just take out words, there's a certain abstraction and a certain, you retain the rhythm of the poet, and yet you take away something that is yours, or something that you want. And this is a season.
But then you have, yeah, sorry, please.
Sorry. I also inserted mirrors inside the pulp, and which was also sort of a continuation of the exhibition which happened just before, Throne of Frost.
I see. So mirror has been quite a, you know, metaphor, but I'll come to that later. But
I was saying, sorry.
Yeah.
There's
So I was saying, sorry, you continue. Yeah. A lot of your exhibition titles are fragments from Plath's poetry. So you have been using these excerpts almost from other thoughts and then building on it, or?
Yeah, it sometimes it's very inspiring. And in fact, a lot of my sketchbook activity is sometimes I make lists, you know, of regular things to do, and I also make lists of just phrases like this taken from a poem mostly, or you know, and it can inspire an image. You know, things can happen, you know, out of that.
That's very interesting, because I have a habit of doing exactly the same, and it's not necessarily poems of, you know, proses, but it could be something somebody said, and I just note that down as well. Yeah, I think these things do inspire us. So going forward, I think these are a series of watercolor and charcoal works. So while we are looking at these images, maybe you can talk a little bit about your medium, watercolor, and why you think it's a tense medium. And then how does charcoal add into it? And of course, the imagery of the garland here is quite important as well. as something that you wear as a jewel, and also something that would choke you or become almost like a weapon sometimes? Those are a lot of questions. Yes.
This is from a series which I did, which was called Necklace of Echoes. And so that whole body of work had a face with something going around her neck. And there were all sorts of things and all sorts of, yeah, you have paper necklace here. And they had all sorts of references and connections. And but as I said, I kind of stumbled into working with watercolor, and then slowly one learns, and I love the brilliance and the transparency of the medium. But after a point, perhaps it was too much, and I had to break away from it, and that's why charcoal helped, and I like the instability it brought to the work, and also I love the idea of chance. It's like something that's going steady and about control and power is. I don't think it works for me. So I like this. I mean, it's a very live process. You see, it becomes live the moment. It's like human, almost as if I'm interacting with something or someone. When I'm painting, that there's something that you do which is under your control, or something that you want to do and you make it. But then, say you use water on charcoal, and everything moves. It could be because of the weather. It could be because of the quality of the charcoal. It could be because of the slope of your desk, or many things. And I love that that there's a response happening which is not calculated, and then I respond to that response. So it's like an active game, and I think that is very important to me. It makes me feel alive and creative, rather than it's not a product. It's not something that I can tell you on the phone about. It's something live that happens when I'm totally involved. And you spoke about tension. So I think watercolor has that quality. You make a mark and it stays, doesn't go away. So it creates a natural tension, and that feeling that you have to hold on. You have to watch it. And I enjoy that a lot. Yeah, it gives me a certain. You can say it's a very intense process.
So these series, I think, were inspired by Kuniyoshi.
That's right. The body was called Face Off after Kuniyoshi, and all the figures that you see, this artist figure is it took off after Kuniyoshi's samurai figures, and the Kuniyoshi is a Japanese 19th century master, ukiyo-e master, and he's done many prints with the samurai figure, and I totally identify with this, because I think the artist in the studio is like is a martial artist, is definitely about the process of painting. You see, it's like it's about total dedication. It's a life and death situation. Could we wait, please? Could we go back to the Kuniyoshi?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's also about a certain a dedicated I'm losing my words. Anyway, so taking off from Kuniyoshi's samurai figure, I thought that, I always think of painting as a martial art, that there's rigor and there is concentration. There's also that whole, I would say, integrity, you know. It's about all that. And when you go to bed at night, your relationship with your painting determines whether you want to sleep or die, you know. I think, so that's why I kind of identify a lot with that samurai figure. And I think constantly, I think it's also about the body, um, the stance, that constant play between being aggressive and being vulnerable, being the body, the active body, you know, in the studio, the victor or the loser or whatever, you know. So I like all these things which happen in the samurai paintings of Kuniyoshi and yeah. Others. Sorry, because what happens is when the painting changes your
Train of thought
yeah,
also moves. I can understand that.
yeah. So again, this was the demons of the studio, which
Yeah.
this is 8 feet across. The monster is a takeoff from one of the Kuniyoshi prints.
Are you seeing a bit of a lag? Because I think after I'm changing, it's coming after a while.
No,
Could
there's
be.
no problem on.
No, it's okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so we passed Arachne and now we are with this. So this was it was a 4-panel work, and yeah.
So coming to your, next series of works that we are going to look at, it's an altar for erasures, and maybe you can say a little about it. Then I can bring in my observation, and we can go from there.
Right. It was so as you see the. I mean, all the previous works and the artist in the studio, the vulnerable self, and so this show happened in 2013. This work, and of course, we are seeing only parts of it, but basically, so I think 2012 or something, I very actively felt that I was at some sort of a dead end, and I was repeating myself. I didn't know how to push myself out of this, and so it just happened that I decided to do this. It's kind of a performative, interactive kind of work. So there are 3 drawings, and they're large drawings, and this was at Kemolt. Could we return to, yeah, this one? We can stay with this. So there were 3 drawings that were made for the special purpose of inviting the viewer to come and erase them. And my whole idea was that I needed to break out of what I was doing, and I thought maybe I should devise some sort of ritual, some sort of elaborate form by which I will have people coming in and rubbing off all that I do, and maybe start again. Some sort of let me see what happens. I don't know. And a lot of the things that were the back of my head at that point were. Not of course, not with that conceptual clarity, but I already knew about the Kuning's drawing being erased by Robert Rauschenberg. And of course, there was a very playful, very conceptual, pioneering gesture. And then there was this Yoko Ono's, I think it's called cut piece, where she offers her clothing, her shirt to be. Yeah, the viewers come and just cut as they please. And then there was also Marina Abramovich. There's that, I think it was called Rhythm or something. She has 72 things on the table. And then she invites
including
the Sorry. Anyway, I hope you can hear.
Yeah, it's getting cut. I think my network is disturbing a bit. Yeah.
So she has 72 things on her table, and she invites the viewer to pick them up and do things to it. Everything from a loaded gun to a knife and a pot of honey, and things like that. So all this I was aware of, but so I just did this this was a kind of a simple device. I thought that the drawings were made, and they were made with dedication and involvement, and the viewer was invited to come and erase. And for that, I made these, if you could go back to the furniture, there was these, like in a church, there was like you have those candle stands at an altar. I made this stand for the erasers. There were ladders, like library ladders, so you can climb up and go to the very top and rub everything. Right now you're seeing the erased drawing. In the previous one, you'll see the sorry. Yeah, this was the stand for the, yeah, so these are the complete drawings, and yeah, and there was this stand for the erasers, and they were beautiful erasers. I picked them specially for my viewers, and then we left it open to the viewers, and I mean, maybe it was very simplistic of me. I thought that, okay, now I made these drawings and the viewer will come and rub them out and I will start fresh. And it sounds banal, but that was exactly what I thought. It was some sort of a cleansing ritual. And the viewers came and there was a full-fledged erasure. And so the show runs for 3 weeks. And by the end of our time, we had great erasures, and I can only say that a lot went through my mind during those times, and it's about, I mean, I felt free, I felt liberated, I let myself open, I let this, it was a great act of intimacy, I thought, to let somebody come and touch your drawing, to let go, do anything to it. But at the same time, it was, there was great violence, and I thought of various things, it's like how far will somebody go if you let them, this whole idea of vandalism. And recently, of course, things that happened to Hussein, then we know about the Bamiyan Buddha. And so on different levels, it set me thinking about various things, and it was quite an experience.
Anju, we'll have to rush through the next images a little bit.
Yeah, I understand.
But we can talk about it.
Right.
It would have to be a little.
Death row. Actually, now you'll see many images which I think I've put together, which have to do with death, and I think it's something that interests me, and which I believe should interest everybody. But it's also about the passage of time, the fragile. That's a death self, which I imagine. That. So it's not just about looking at the dark side as people seem to think. I think it's also about, I enjoy that, I mean, how can you escape it?
Right.
It's like, I walk safe in my studio, but how can I escape what goes on outside? And this is my way of coping with it. And
so these are from your...
these are from 2016.
Mill of Air is a
Mill of Hooks. That's right. Also, there are some images which you'll see which have to do with the book, and yeah, in fact, in the morning I was having a conversation with some friend. It's about books as something that, I mean, such a cliche, but the whole relay of civilization happens through books, and then you have at the same time book burning, censorship, and I always, I mean, there's Matisse who painted the girl in a room reading, and then when I do that sometimes, and it can't mean the same thing. What Matisse does in 1905, with the girl in the room reading a book, and when a woman reads a book today, it's a totally different thing. There are implications of liberty and, the political. So there's so much else. Okay, this was a format which is an extension of the mattress, which I like to work with very much. It's a fabric, different fabrics assembled together, and then I draw on it. And yeah, it's
Right.
also, I think it has to do with those initial collages that I used to do in college. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I saw these works, and although I have not seen, your collages as such, but I could understand, there's this almost cutout forms that you arrange. But here, when you're doing on a fabric, fabric has an identification as primarily a very feminine medium, and it has a role within the feminist modes of expression. So does this play in your mind while you're working, or is it one of your concepts, or is this something that you're aware of but not really concerned?
I think for me, it's one thing is that uh, I like the way charcoal responds to the texture of the fabric. So that's very formal. And another thing is that the material that you're looking at here is what what is used as the lining of furniture. We call it mother part here in Bombay, and it's used as a lining for furniture. And I find that very fascinating that all the sofas and chairs that I've lived on had this inside, and so it's like the fabric inside, the constant presence. It's a domestic. Um, I mean, something that's been there forever, but it's been inside. It's been hidden. The word that you used in the beginning, and I like that very much. That is
But
uh, the
but it's
character.
also the thing that gives strength. I'm saying it's also the thing that gives strength to the beautiful fabric that we see. So it plays a much more important role than we give it credit
Yeah.
for.
Right, and it's behind the scenes, so to
Yeah,
say.
it's behind
So
the scenes.
I like that quality. And as far as the feminine and all, I don't know. I don't like the idea of having to um, fall into a bracket. So, okay, are you doing this because you're a woman? I mean, I don't care. You figure out, because I'm doing things because I need to do them, you see. And it could be because I'm a woman. It could be because um, my form dictates, or my content dictates, or my sleepless night dictates. So I feel that the bracketing, or the association of I just feel that especially now, 2020, I feel a woman should be free to make her choices without being pointed out, again and again, that
Yeah.
you did this because you're a woman. Yes, I did, but don't tell me about it. I know. You see, I mean, this is not for you, Ushmita. This is a general.
Yeah.
I feel a great anger about this. You see, it's a very, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's very legitimate. It's like, don't put me in that book with the beads because I'm a woman. But you can put me in a book
Exactly.
with beads just because it's about beads. But don't keep telling me that that is my bracket and that is my zone. I don't want to be there just because of that. I mean, this is again, Ushmita, not for you, but it's a old angle.
No, I completely agree with you, because I think as women, we inhabit so many different kinds of roles, and we should be free to inhabit those roles, like you say, as we want to. If we want to be silent and, quiet and be our own person, that's also fine. If we want
Correct.
to be a feminist out into the protests, that is also perfectly fine. I think
Correct.
we should be comfortable with our identity right now, because that is what exactly feminism is about, being
Exactly.
able to stand for your own self and to be your own person. There can be different interpretations of feminism as
Exactly.
well.
Exactly. Exactly. So this was in the last show that you came for, and it's after a drawing of painting of Marguerite, and so I put it just before the Apocalypse paintings, because Apocalypse rehearsal for an Apocalypse was in the Kochi Biennale, and the other painting was in my show, and I think they're part of the same thing, almost as if I don't know, just thinking of the end of the world scenario, and Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, recently I saw a video, a small video by Geef Patel on this particular work of yours on Instagram. He was talking about yours and Nilima's Chechi, Salam Chechi. So he, in this particular work, he was saying that it is almost a prescient of what is to come, perhaps. He was talking in terms of the situation right now, and also in Nilima's works. So I found that quite interesting, the way he was reading or looking at your work.
Yeah, it was kind of.
Did you perhaps see the video?
I've seen it. Yeah, it's a very moving account, and it's.
Yeah.
I was, but it's also. This was 2018, and I mean, part of my history is also my interest in medieval painting, and I have seen many apocalypse pictures, and I wanted to paint my own. But that's one thing. But it's also about the kind of time we live in. It seems like seems very healthy to keep thinking about these things, because it seems around the corner. Like,
So we've come to the last two images. I think these are from your very recent solo that opened in February, Breathing on Mirrors. And while I was looking through all your works, I kept thinking about the idea of mirrors as an object, as a metaphor, almost. Then again, lines from Sylvia Plath's poetry. So you keep bringing this back in, and especially with this exhibition, Breathing on Mirrors, it evoked for me, the idea of life and death together. Because as children, we used to breathe on mirrors or glasses, and then draw little squiggles on it. And then I've seen in films where people are dying and a mirror is held in to see whether they are alive or not. This idea of this very sensitive feeling, which is almost that liminal gap between living the life and death. How do you look at mirror? Because your favorite poet Sylvia Plath has obviously written about mirrors in her poem, The Mirror. So, what is your take on it?
yeah, it's breathing on mirrors. I was just thinking of. I mean, one thing that sounds nice, and I was thinking that when you're up close to a mirror, you see a fuzzy self, and so this thing about being up close, I think my itinerary seems to be getting more and more internal, and kind of it's so focused that I worry that it becomes fuzzy. The view becomes fuzzy, when you're so close to something. So I was thinking of all that really. And, so that you don't see well, you're so close to it. And I had no clue that after the show opened, now we have all this, breathing itself, and the difficulty of breathing. I had no clue that we would be entering this time, but it's happened. Yeah, I told you.
We've come to the end of your presentation. Yes, with this very, very interesting image. So if you would like to say something like this. Tying and tying.
I wanted you to end.
Almost like Penelope.
Well, I don't know. I thought that this is almost like an ideogram of what I do. For me, it was like it was part of the last show, and I thought that this thing about I like to tie knots and then open them, and then goes on in a loop. That's a process. Like you make something, and then again you withdraw, and then you make it, withdraw, and then I think that process. So it's almost like a diagram, an illustration of the whole process. That's all I do. That's me.
And it's also about tying yourself up in knots, I think.
Did Atul tell you that?
Of course not. That was when I was researching work and was listening to all your interviews, prior interviews, you keep referring to, yourself as seduced, anxious, and nervous, and, we associate the phrase tying up with non-tied knots. And then I thought that you're ending with this, and I linked it with Penelope, and that you're weaving and unring, tying and untying. So, that kind of made it almost accentuate way. But it's just, you could disagree with that, of course.
No.
So before we have a lot of questions, and we go just stop share here, and we'll come back on screen. Thank you. That was a simply amazing conversation. I think
Thank
heard
you,
a lot of things. I hope we were able to cover a lot of ground. Although this is, I've found that this time is very short. When you get into a conversation that you're really enjoying it, time just flies. But because we have a fixed thing.
But I think we've already overdone 20 minutes. So,
yeah. So let's jump right into some questions. Just a minute. Okay. Well, some of the things you've already answered, so I don't see any reason to. Okay. Harsha Andukuri asks, how do you channelize your inspirations into a series? Do you think of a theme and then look for inspiration?
no, it's usually, I think I work with intuition. So sometimes you do one thing and it works. So you do a second thing, and then suddenly, after making 3-4 images, I feel that, oh, this is becoming a series. But otherwise, it's very intuitive, and just let it happen. And yeah.
Right. So Hina Puri asks, there's a lot of drama and tension in the storytelling happening in the works, and it has remained a sort of a constant. The faces are all stoic, and the painting is like a silent scream. What goes on with you emotionally?
You mean with me?
Yes, she's asking what goes on with you emotionally. This is Hina Puri.
Okay, actually, after I finish an exhibition, I'm very calm and I'm wonderful and disciplined, and I feel that, okay, so now onwards you're going to be you're going to be a good artist. You're going to work every day. But soon after this, everything falls apart, and I have irregular hours, and I have great anxiety, and till the images, like somebody was saying, how so till I come to, if I there are at least 7-8 paintings happen in a certain direction, then I start feeling calm. Then it becomes more like process, because before that it's like some sort of I don't know, I have to handle many eruptions, and it's crazy. But I calm down
so
initially.
Sejal Shah asks, she wants to know that you use bin fabric.
Sorry?
What do you use beneath the fabric?
Okay, I used high density foam, and then it's pasted on a marine ply.
Do you work every day? This is from Darshana Bajaj.
I go to the studio every day, but I don't work every day. But I guess in retrospect, that is work too, to read, to sit at a window, to hope to work.
I mean, that's also important, right? To give yourself the time to think and just be. Charlie Holt asks, have you been influenced or touched by surrealist methods of creating works, connecting apparently disconnected images?
Not consciously, but and also it's a natural tool which one can always go back to. I don't do it consciously.
Yeah, but then you have been you have quoted certain people who have been involved in surrealism, like Buñuel, for instance, or Antonin Artaud, for instance.
Right.
I think.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe not directly, but you enjoy perhaps that kind of an approach.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, the psychological area is interesting for me and to play there, but not necessarily as a strategy. I don't use it as a strategy.
Um, Anonymous attendee asks, does art have to have a common ground in order to be beautiful, or can it be selfish enough not to be understood but expressed and still be called beautiful?
Actually, I really feel that I'm a great believer in the freedom of the artist and the freedom of the viewer. So if they overlap and they see the same things, there's no great advantage in it. I mean, they can see this different things and it can still work. You know, art can. That's the wonderful thing about it. That I do what I do in my studio, and you see it in a different way. And I mean, thank God, because otherwise we'd be so harmonious and boring.
Sata Singh asks, what medium was used for your, no, this is we've asked. Sangeeta K asked, in your initial works, technical question about watercolors, do you do the figures first and then the background?
Usually I do some sort of a pencil drawing and then I proceed, and anything can happen first. Sometimes the wash happens, often the wash happens first and the figures, or it can go the other way around, depends on how sharp you want it. If you want it sharp, then, and also I think I go backward and forward. I do it and then do it again. So it's a lot of layering. That's usual. That's normal.
So Anup Daniel and Sudeep Ghosh have similar questions. Anup wants to know if it is possible for you to elaborate calling creativity a violent process, and Sudeep asks, in documenting creative violence, how does your self-referential design retrieve the echoes of self-doubt?
I think the first question about creativity is violent because, of course, I used it as in a very metaphorical way. You know, that Athena is being pulled out of Jupiter's head. But I think it's also about you face the white of the paper in the studio. I'm standing there. There's nothing, and then it sounds very cliched, but you destroy the white and you put something there. But it's also about, I think you have to kind of annihilate the doubt and, make a gesture. And that gesture is there's great violence, you have to do away with many things and then agree to something and then you put it there. So that's the violence I'm referring to.
So Shilpa Bhargav asks, I think she had listened to your talk at Lalit Kala Academy, Chandigarh. And so she asks, has it ever happened that you felt saturated or fatigued from the very things which inspire you, like pre-Renaissance paintings or kabuki theater imagery?
I'm surprised that no, because not kabuki so much, but the UQA paintings that I look at, I'm surprised that, and also, to be inspired is different and to love something. Like I love to see a Bergman film, but I might be inspired by a street sign, so they're different things. They can be very different things. And anyway, for instance, Kuniyoshi, I think I like to see Utamaro more than Kuniyoshi, but at the same time, Kuniyoshi he's like a bank for me. I see so many things there that I can work with, or they enrich me.
Vijay Raghavan Srinivasan says, absolutely, your artworks are highly captivating in diverse audiences and powerful narratives. My question is, how did you balance identity, self-image, and the intuitional imagery in the process of art making?
I think I didn't attempt any balance. I just tried to make some art, and that's it. So there's no strategy. You see, you just, like Jasper Johns said once, take a thing do something to it, do something else to it. That's it. That's all you do. I mean, what can you do? You can't do anything more than that. And I think I stand back and I do try to, I mean, one analyzes afterwards. But I mean, you can be full of doubt and anxiety. But at the same time, it's only when you forget everything and do something that things happen. And then you can think about it, you can analyze this after a month or a year or a century. But if you try to overanalyze while working, I can't function. It's very difficult.
Okay, there are a couple of questions that again overlap a bit. Anonymous attendee asks, does Atul's work influence you? And Sanjay Matre asks, does Atul give you criticism at times? And do you also give him, and vice versa?
I think we do influence each other in many ways, but we don't go to each other's studios without permission, and we give each other advice, and we accept it sometimes and may not accept it, so that all that goes on, and it's very, very rough, that side, because it's not easy to be to tell and to be told, but we do that. But I think we maintain a certain brutal honesty, which is good, but it's not really yeah.
Sabita Lakshmanan makes an observation, loved the artistic journey and your unassuming candor. Thanks for sharing. Since an artist, one does go through a good share of self-doubt and anxiety, your inputs are very inspiring and encouraging. That's nice, Sabita. Chintamani Gayatri asks, why are you always following Western or Far Eastern philosophy?
Right. I am actually, I feel I don't have to justify that, because I feel like a world citizen, and I think all art belongs to the viewer. So, for instance, I like to look at the Deccani miniatures, and I like the gold and the dark tonality of the Deccani miniatures. And I also like, say, for instance, the Japanese prints, and I also love Rauschenberg. And I think it's coming from the same sensibility, the same head. And, actually, the thing is that I may love everything, but I cannot help it that I paint in a certain manner, so I draw from certain sources. But actually, I'm a very, very sincere viewer. I look at everything. I just can't not look.
So just a last two questions that we'll take. One is, how do you know this? I've already asked. Where did the question go? Oh, though you don't like to bracket yourself into any ideology, would like to know how easy or difficult for you to reach the mainstream art practice as a woman. This is from Om Surya.
It's like when I did my first exhibition, 1990, it was a very small art world. You see, we had just 3 galleries in Bombay. And in fact, when I left JJ School of Art after my art school, I was very clear that one had to do other things to survive. And I wasn't expecting to live off painting, but I think slowly, it's like you work, you show your work to artists, and then these things happen. And it's very slow. In my days, it was a very slow process. It wasn't like, but I feel fortunate that I've had opportunities and stuff like that.
I think that we come to the last question. Thank you so much, Anju. It was absolutely brilliant, and I think everybody who's been watching will quite agree with me. And we've been getting a lot of thank yous on the chat. People have loved the talks.
Thank you so much, Ushmita. And also, I just want to share that because I just felt comfortable, and I was talking to you as if we are chatting across a table, and I hope it wasn't too relaxed or too crazy.
Not at all. Not at all. It was really nice, and I always keep a cup of coffee and I drink, so it also relaxes me. It makes me think, exactly as you say. And I'm on my dining table, and I feel that it's a conversation across the table.
Right.
So nice.
I mean, I just spoke freely, and I hope it's.
It was wonderful. I'm sure Richa will agree.
Absolutely. And that's the idea, because sometimes we glamorize and we make the whole art world so intimidating for youngsters also. So it's very nice for them to see y'all as real people, because y'all are icons. Y'all have set the trend in so many levels. So for them to connect, it makes it much easier. And for all of us, there's a lot of take home also.
Hmm.
Thank you so much. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. To all our viewers, please do write in your feedback to contact@imamiart.com, and tune in tomorrow for our final session of this module with Jayashree Chakravarti at 4 o'clock. By the way, I think Jayashree is online watching with us. She has been watching. So hello, Jayashree, if you are there. And thank you, everybody. It was an absolute pleasure talking with Anju today. And somebody says bye from UK. We've been getting a lot of love the honest chat from
Yes,
Sarika. Rupa Kangovi says amazing. Nayantara Ross says thank you everyone. One of the so a lot of messages for you, Anju. I'm sure if you just open the chat icon, you can read it yourself.
okay, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.